In the aftermath of Bill Cosby's guilty verdict, Camille Cosby has taken to Facebook to release an official statement about her husband's conviction, comparing it to Emmett Till's death. Now, in a post on Cosby's Facebook page, she wrote a long piece that started with a conversation about the Constitution and then going into Emmett Till and then going into jury by media. So I want to read you a few snippets. She says, the overall media, with their frenzied, relentless demonization of him and unquestioning acceptance of accusers' allegations without any attendant proof, have superseded the 5th and 14th Amendments, which guarantee due process and equal protection and thereby eliminated the possibility of a fair trial and unbiased jury. Bill Cosby was labeled as guilty because the media and accusers said so, period. Are the media now the people's judges and juries? So I do want to continue going on through some of her statement, but I want to stop here and talk about this a little bit because I think this is one of the first times where we are seeing the media turn, on their beloved character, right? Bill Cosby is America's dad or was America's dad. And oftentimes that will lead the media and the jury to be biased in their favor. But now with the Me Too movement and after the mistrial, he already had the mistrial, he is being seen in a different light. And I do think that that is something that we should recognize and not be putting down.
I think Camille has lost her mind. I think she heard the lyrics to Stand By Your Man and then didn't hear the part where it was like, until he drugs and rapes 60 women. I think that's the part of the song she missed.
That was an asterisk. Was a footnote.
It's Stand By Your Man until he drugs and rapes 60 women.
I'm fascinated, for lack of a better word, by Camille Cosby and by people like this, because the only thing I continue to come back to is, does she believe it? Does she believe what she's saying, or is there a payout? Is there fear? Is there brainwashing? Is there Stockholm Syndrome? Or does she believe it? I don't know if we'll ever know, but I keep coming back to that. So fascinating.
I think she believes it, but I think she believes it because she's been with him for so long and gotten herself to believe it, right? Because otherwise her whole life was a lie. The entire time they were married, he was drugging and sexually assaulting 58 women. It's hard to live with that unless you think, no, he's not guilty, it's all a lie. But before we even get to that Emmett Till thing, real quick on her saying that they're kind of taking away his First Amendment rights. That doesn't make any sense at all. He has every First Amendment right in the world. He can say whatever he wants. He can say he's a celebrity.
It says 5th and 14th.
No,
she said first?
Yeah, no, in another part.
Oh, okay.
She said the media ensured the dissemination of that propaganda by establishing barricades, preventing the dissemination of the truth in violation of the protections of the First Amendment. So, no, there's no violation of the First Amendment. First of all, the media doesn't do that. The government would violate the First Amendment, so you're totally wrong on the concept. Second of all, you just said this. They didn't prevent you from saying it. Bill Cosby can say anything he wants. Yeah. So you're totally confused about that in a desperate attempt to justify what's going on.
Yeah. And also she said he was convicted by public opinion or whatever she said, something period. And it's like, no, he admitted to buying drugs to get women to sleep.
Let's read on a little bit.
He said to sleep with him, but actually buying drugs to incapacitate women to sexually assault them. And that is not being convicted in the jury of public opinion. That is actually illegal.
And a 22-year-old juror has no idea who he is and still found this to be true.
That's right.
And he was literally convicted by an actual jury.
Yes. Okay, let's continue on. So she says, since when are all accusers truthful? History disproves that. For example, Emmett Till's accuser immediately comes to mind. In 1955, she testified before a jury of white men in a Mississippi courtroom that a 14-year-old African-American boy had sexually assaulted her, only to later admit several decades later in 2008 that her testimony was false. This is such a disgrace to Emmett Till's legacy. Even his family has said, do not associate his death with what's going on with Cosby's conviction. And what happened there was they said, they were found, they admitted to having done it, essentially, and the jury still found them not guilty. But that's not what's happening here. Emmett Till did not have a voice in this. These 58 women have come forward about this and talked about what's going on. And even the jury said in this particular case that it was Cosby's own comments that made made their decision.
This is so offensive.
It is
in
so
many
unbelievably
ways. It is so
offensive.
egregiously offensive. Emmett Till was a 14-year-old kid who whistled at a white woman and then
maybe
then
we don't even know if that was true.
And then was beaten to death for whistling allegedly at a white woman. Bill Cosby, is not nowhere near death. Well, not because of the jury, but also he admitted to drugging women so that he could sexually assault them, and then 68 women have backed up this account. So this is like
he admitted
it's
his
so
wrongdoings.
offensive to Emmett Till.
Well, and not even Emmett Till. Any family of a wrongfully convicted person should be outraged by this.
True.
I mean, the net is very wide.
And what she's creating this false equivalency between Emmett Till's death, which was this horrendous act and just egregious, torturous, act of violence, right? And then she tries to create this false equivalency by saying, well, in the case of Bill Cosby, unproven accusations evolved into lynch mobs, again, misusing that word, who publicly and privately coerced cancellations of Bill Cosby's scheduled performances, syndications of The Cosby Show. She is comparing his murder to Cosby not being able to do
losing some show dates. Yeah.
Hey, Camille, look up, Google image lynchings and then shut your stupid mouth. Because this is so offensive. I mean, lynchings, like, it's a real thing that is happening to this day. Like, Eric Garner was lynched, some would argue, by the NYPD. There were 2 black men that were just lynched in Oklahoma recently. Bill Cosby is not one of these people. Bill Cosby is not getting lynched, okay?
Yeah. I've done long explanations of what a lynching was back in the day. You don't want to hear it. It's the most gruesome thing you'll ever hear. It's not that you lost a stand-up routine, as Hannah said. So look, Bill Cosby and his wife are doing the Clarence Thomas strategy. So to be fair to Bill Cosby, he has done some wonderful things for the African American community. But a lot of the people in the African American community, well before any of this news came out, were also annoyed at him because he would go around yelling at kids, about personal responsibility. Pull your pants up. It's all about personal responsibility. Kind of saying like it's your fault. That was at least how it was perceived, right? So now instead of taking personal responsibility and pulling his pants up, he goes and talks about lynchings, right? Or he gets his wife to do it, which is what Clarence Thomas did. There's no racism, and that's why he's nominated by a Republican president to the Supreme Court. And then when he's accused, high-tech lynching. So, no, don't do that. That's incredibly disrespectful to the memories of all the people who suffered through that.
Well, and he's of advanced age, and his legacy is tarnished and is never coming back. But if you'd think if you wanted to sort of balance the ledger in any way when you're of this advanced age, you do what you can to, mea culpa, to clear all of this wrong and not double down when you're an octogenarian. This is how you're going to be remembered, by giving a deposition saying you drugged women, by being convicted now and saying this is an outrage, remember lynching. Yeah. Now it's worse than it could have ever been.
Also, one more point I want to make that really frustrated me when she talks about since when are all accusers truthful? And that is just so just demeaning to all women that come forward and have the courage and bravery to come forward. I mean, when you think about false accusations, it is such a small percentage. They estimate around 2%. And most women don't even come forward about their sexual assaults or their rapes. So the fact that she's like questioning women's truths.
58 women.
58 women's truths that just have come forward. We don't know how many other victims there might be, is so unbelievably irresponsible as a woman and so damning to half of our country.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below. Then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.